So we're going to start today with a tweet about post-truth. We are not technically in a strictly relativistic post-truth world. We are effectively in a post-truth world, effectively, due to the increased relativity of truth. That is to say, there is objective reality, but human beings have difficulty agreeing on what it is. And it's getting harder. So, of course, we do not live in a strictly post-truth world. We have an outer reality that reflects the laws of physics, among other considerations. We have that outer world we all see, we all share, the one that we have, empirical evidence for, that we can relatively, more objectively view as a group, as a large group known as humankind, looking at it through our very specific filter, our window on the world that comes through our human perception, which is different from the perception of other living creatures that we all share this world with, the animal kingdom, as it were. But of course, we do also have our inner world interpretation of events, a more subjective reality filtered through our cognitive processes and how we, as individuals, 7 billion of us or more, as there are, we all view the world differently. We have different frames and truths of our own. And of course, part of the scientific process, the scientific method, and what you see in terms of debate online, people coming together from different sides, bringing one opinion here to another, and finding the truth that lies between each side of any given binary. Now, the world is not all binaries, of course, either. But in the context of this tweet, we're talking about post-truth. Now, when we hear the word post-truth world, some people say, well, we do have, actual physical events that have happened, flesh and blood, life and death. We have all kinds of things that happen geologically and all this. You can't say that it's all post-truth, it's not really happening. And that's not what I'm saying, because it is objectively there. Truth is not ultimately, in many ways, subjective, but in many ways it is. As always, context counts. So, while we are not strictly in a post-truth world, there are a number of areas of human interaction and linguistics and so forth in which, well, it is a bit of a post-truth environment. Politics, for example, I often call politics a post-truth realm. Politics is a post-truth realm. Check out that video on my channel on BitChute and YouTube for more information on that. But that's because politics is a world of largely framing. Framing, filters, and selectivity in how we assess different situations, how we look at different environments. Now, human beings, we don't have the same outlook that animals do. Animals live in a moral world. If one animal harms another animal, you can see the effects of that immediately. They reflect in the reality of the situation. With humans, we have another layer. It's called ethics, a moral code to live by. We look at things more complicated, in a more complicated frame than just, harm, just survival, harm. I'm not saying that animals can't love and hate, they can't express, they can certainly express the appearance of love and hate. They can have a camaraderie with other animals of the same species or other, and they can also enact aggression towards those other animals, which would be a form of hate. So they do have a moral system, but they are not cognizant of it for the most part. We can't mind read humans, just as we can't mind read animals, and so on and so forth. But they're not looking at it in an ethical filter. There's no postmodern filter or moral code or religion or system of ethics that animals follow. So animals have their world. We have morality. We have a wider lens on what's going on. but we still don't have neutrality. We have in-group preference. Now, I call myself a bit of a humanist, and people tend to get a little perturbed by that because there is such thing as secular humanism. When I say humanism, I'm talking about humans first, animals and all other considerations second. Now, with that frame in mind, my considerations for what is moral and what is good is subjective to me. Now, we all have our own sense of morality, we have our own sense of truth. And when we're trying to understand our environment, we might look at it in different frames, different windows, different filters and colors that help us to label things, to have more accurate, more refined pattern recognition, and so that we can easily put two and two together on any given equation, whatever moral question it may be. Is this better? Is this better? Is this better for the greater good? Or is this better for the greater good? All these questions, we have the, I guess you could call it, privilege of asking, and animals can't. But that's a bit tangential. We are effectively in a post-truth world due to the increased relativity of truth. Because truth changes depending on which media you take in, which sources of information assign our opinions, and so forth. We are looking at a limited window on reality itself, the bigger picture, the macro and the meta. We are looking at just from our set of eyes, from peering out from our inner world, our inner reality, we are filtering what's happening. And we do our best to try to find the greater truth, what's really going on, and the best way to describe it to others and to interpret it. But ultimately, we all do need to keep the conversation going. That's why I'm pro-information and pro-free speech. I like to make sure we can all keep talking, comparing and contrasting our different views so that we better understand the world on a greater level. But post-truth, of course, is, people might call it lying. But lying, of course, is it intentional? Gaslighting has to have intention behind it. Are you trying to craft a reality for everybody and mislead them? Is this disinformation or misinformation? There's all this question of intent with post-truth, environments of post-truth. Intent is often, of course, about achieving some goal, survivalistic in some respect, self-serving in some respect. And in other cases, you do have people that are showing out-group preference, and like a lion hugging a bear, you're showing out-group preference and giving love to someone else. But post-truth, in the context of politics, you have people that say a lot of things. They say a lot of things, they make promises, and whether they can keep them or not, they're saying them. There may be truth to what they're saying. They may believe in what they're saying, but is it likely to happen? If I make a promise that I'm going to deliver 10 of something, and I only deliver 8, am I lying if I were unable to deliver 10 and only 8? No, I might have been a little hyperbolic. And if you frame hyperbolic statements or hyperbole as lying, of course, in a post-truth realm, lying, hyperbole, pointing these things out is a little bit redundant because everybody is assumed to be doing them on some level. We are all using postmodern, post-truth frames to push our persuasion. The art and science of persuasion often doesn't look at the nuts and bolts, as I call them. It's not looking at the facts. It's looking at the appearance, at the optics. Because in this world where we have such short attention spans, we only have, 5 or 10 minutes here and there to spend our time watch. Check out my new tweet, time watching, for more about that. But we have only so much eyeball time on our screens and in our environments. We have only so much media we can take in, may it be social or independent media, or mainstream, mollusk media, whatever media it might be that we're taking in, the information we're seeing, the people we're interacting with. We only have so much time. So sometimes people will just look at a headline or a lead of an article, the first couple of paragraphs of a news article. They'll need to read your tweet or read whatever you're typing or writing. Really, they need to have it very easily digestible. Otherwise, it's eating up time that they could be spending on, well, the other 100, 200, 300, or 400 or more people or sources of information that are vying for their time watch, their attention, their interest. So we are effectively in a post-truth world due to the increased relativity of truth. Truth is in many ways largely subjective and relative, just as morality is. We all have our own view on what is good, what is right, and what is wrong. I don't believe in right think or wrong think. That's usually a product of a very persuasive ideology. But I do believe that we all do have our own sense of what's better or not so good on various topics and vectors. So we have objective reality, but human beings have difficulty agreeing on what it is, and it's getting harder. It is getting harder. We have a lot of white noise out there in the world, different voices that are, in many ways, some of them are more truthy, as the late Stephen Colbert would say, than others. There is misinformation out there. There is disinformation. But of course, who is the arbiter of what is dis, and good information? And that is a great question, because we do have scientists. I know scientists are human beings. They have tribal tendencies, and science is the belief in the ignorance of the experts. But I also do say seek subject matter experts on many topics. But scientists disagree. Consensus isn't necessarily real in science, because there's always another person pushing forward, pressing the scientific method forward and saying, well, we have two really good conclusions here, but the truth lies between. No one's lying here. It's not a post-truth environment per se, but when people are trying to persuade and they're looking at people that don't have the same level of knowledge on the subject, it does become about theater. So in many ways, our world, the larger waves, some people might frame social movements and cultural engineering and persuasion as different waves crashing against each other and crashing on different shores. But human beings, we have difficulty agreeing on what the truth is. And that's a good thing. That means the ball keeps on moving forward. Keeps moving forward. And scientists, which is all of us, we are all on some level, if we're thinking about these things and looking for solutions to problems in our lives or others, we are scientists. We are social scientists. We may be chemical scientists, however it may be. But if we think with the scientific method, we are scientists. And maybe our purview is our jurisdiction in the world of science is only our own lives. But if we think and we start to get analytical and poke around and try to find the problems and look for solutions, I think this is a healthy mindset for us all to enjoy and for us to get from point A to point B. So post-truth, you see it in any place where there's a large institution, where there's people that are part of a movement. There may be elements of, hey, a little bit of hyperbole here, some questionable framing there, but in the whole, we do not live in a post-truth world. Get grounded, as I say, get grounded, understand, nobody is implying that you're living in a simulation. That is an ideology, a theory, an axiom, for example. There are all kinds of axioms, some of them I call modern religions, that help bring order and purpose and guide our reality. But largely, while we have our inner world, our inner filter, that goes up against and gets tested against the outer world filter that is what everybody sees, the general consensus reality. While we have it, it doesn't necessarily mean that, well, just because I say something makes it true. But then again, someone could make the argument, well, you get into philosophy, you get into why there is this axiomatic thinking, like simulation theory, and religion at large. Why are we here? Those big questions. Why do I think this way? What am I? What is my consciousness? Like, we as humans, we have the blessing and the curse of consciousness to give us these questions and to make sure we're always thinking, we're always moving forward and questioning everything. And I think that's a beautiful thing about it. But I do want to get away from the idea that post-truth means that it's all clown world, it's postmodern, and nothing is true and nothing really exists. It's all just a construct. That is not it. But context counts. And in certain areas, especially of linguistics and human interactions, on a grand scale, optics matter. And communication style and attention span matters. And so sometimes people fudge things a little bit. And so many people are fudging things that it's become chaotic. It's hard to manage. And that's why I actually see some people just retreat right into going along directly with the mainstream media narratives, because they're, frankly, the path of least resistance. The most people believe in them. And there's not much nuance there to need to, you don't have to go through this years-long process of parsing out, well, this person was exaggerating here and that person lied a little bit there, but it was for a good intention. We mind read it for a good or bad intention, however it may be. There's all this out there, and you could say, oh, it's post-truth, and wave it away. Oh, it's post-truth. That's it. We don't need to think. Well, we do need to think, but at the same time, sometimes when I'm reading a story, I go, yeah, we live in a theater world. I talk about that in one of my new videos, Private Parts. Check it out on BitChute and YouTube, where we talk a little bit about how privacy has affected the theatrical nature of human interaction at large. So